Welcome into this third episode of your Razorback Recap. We are your go-to destination for the latest updates on Arkansas baseball and softball action. Join us as we break down the thrilling moments this week, highlight standout performances, and discuss what strategies went into shaping these games. And Seth, there's a new number one team in the country, and that is your Arkansas Razorbacks.
Yeah, I think we're consensus number one kind of across all the polls right now with the way college baseball's weekend kind of went with Wake Forest losing two to Duke, which Duke is ranked. I think they were number 12 at the time that they took down Wake Forest, 2-1, I believe. But it was at Wake, and I think that had a little bit to do with the drop that they had as well. I mean, and granted, losing a series doesn't matter if it's to a ranked opponent like that. If you're the number one team, you're expected to drop a little bit, at least this early in the year. So a couple, things went our way as far as Hog fans go to get us into that number one spot. Some timely losses of other teams and whatnot. And obviously, we played, in my opinion, pretty dang well this weekend against McNeese. So what a great weekend. What a good time to be a Razorback fan, especially when it comes to baseball and softball.
Yeah, that's very true. So Arkansas baseball got its second sweep of the season in its second series, home non-conference series, and which that actually takes them to their 30th consecutive non-conference series win and sweep against non-conference opponents. And, Arkansas got an even better news this weekend as they were able to get Peyton Stovall back. And so we are able to get Peyton Stovall back. You were there on Saturday in the Hog Pen, with all the Razorback fans. And I'm sure that was a warm welcome to get him back as, they had the doubleheader on Saturday due to the weather on Friday, shifting everything forward. And so, the first game of this doubleheader was probably the least exciting of these three games, but we still got the win behind Hagen Smith coming out and pitching 4 great innings, 64 pitches, 1 hit, 0 runs. Had 3 walks in this game, but 9 strikeouts. Will McIntyre came on in relief in this one. 2 innings pitched, 42 pitches. He had 5 hits, 1 run, 2 Ks. Jake Faraday came in for a third of an inning, 21 pitches, 1 hit, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout. And you had Gabe Geckel come in 2 2/3 to close things out, 35 pitches, 1 hit, 3 Ks. So it looks like he's turning into somewhat of our closer this season. As a young freshman, he's come in and had some great performances. He had that impressive, like as you described it last week, character building moment against UCA where, bases loaded situation, but he is able to work around that and, really step up to the plate when Dave Van Horn and Matt Hobbs was like, I trust you. This is your game. So, let's go out there and win it. So what did you take from this first game's pitching with you being there, in person?
It was a blast of a game, and you kind of hit the nail on the head around Peyton Stovall being back and the crowd getting really hyped whenever they announced that he was going to be in the starting lineup and whatnot. I think it had been announced on social media just very recently prior to the game actually starting, so it was news to a lot of people. So that was an exciting moment to have him back, and I thought he had a great debut for sure. But then, like you were saying, on the pitching side of things, you could tell that we were maybe holding back a little bit on some guys, not letting them go as deep in this game as maybe we originally would have, getting prepped for SEC play, not trying to let anybody get overextended or have a chance to hurt themselves or anything like that, with Hagen only pitching 4 innings. And I thought he was actually pitching well. Had a couple of walk issues in like the very beginning of the game in the first and second inning. But outside of that, I mean, he was, lights out as usual. 9 strikeouts. And, if he's able to pitch another 1 or 2 innings, he's going to break that double digit mark, have 10, 12, 13 strikeouts. So I don't hate the decision for Dave pulling him early at only 64 pitches, letting him get a little extra rest, because I do expect him to get closer to that 80, 90 mark against Missouri this coming weekend if, he doesn't get hit a lot or anything like that, So all in all, I thought Will came in, did okay. Seemed like they were kind of having some solid contact against him. Faraday came in and almost struggled, in my opinion, with some command, had a couple of walks, did have the strikeout, and it didn't look great to me. And then Gabe came in and really kind of cleaned things back up. To your point, he has really looked like he is ahead of the curve considering he's a freshman. It really has potential to kind of be a shutdown closer. And we talked about it last week. He really does have potential to be, that next kind of big name in the pitching staff with him just being a freshman. He's got that Hagen Smith, Brady Tiger, Kevin Kopps, like killer mentality almost. You can just see it in the way he approaches batters and just the way his almost stoicness on the mound is. He's kind of got that type of mentality, and it's really shown through. I think early in the year, he's been a guy that Dave Van Horn and Matt Hobbs have really been able to rely on, like you said. And this was kind of another one of those instances where he really come out and slammed the door on a team that really was close to making. That they could have had a comeback at any given moment in this game with it only being 3-1. A walk and then a dinger, that was at risk at pretty much any given moment the last 4 or 5 innings. And for Gabe to come in there and kind of really shut that opportunity down for them and secure the win, I think that was pretty clutch for us. So he's been somebody that's been a bright spot, especially as a freshman. And I think he's slowly, kind of getting that Friday closer spot locked down. So it's been a fun ride watching how deep we are and the way the coaches have kind of shuffled the pitching staff around. And you're slowly starting to see it kind of fall into place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, these guys are stepping up, and it's like you said, we've got conference play coming up this weekend as Missouri's coming to town, and you want to save these guys as with conference play being here, that's what's going to take priority. You got a 1 week or a 1 game series against Oral Roberts tomorrow, but other than that, like you said, pitching is still doing its thing. And then when you flip over to our bats, it seems like we're a little slow to the start, but they're getting there. And it all starts out with Vahiva Aloy, as he had his first really big hit in that UCA game, and then ever since then it's been much improved for him, which I know that's what everybody's been waiting for. And he got things started off in this first game with his RBI single, and in the 3rd inning, followed up by a double by Hudson, in the 4th by Hudson White, which got Arkansas its 3 runs. But other than that, it's good to see him swinging the ball with a little bit more or the bat with a little bit more confidence and making more solid contact with the ball.
Yeah, we talked about it, just a few weeks back that his average wasn't great at the time, but it wasn't like he was up there striking out a bunch. He was making hard contact, whether it was a ground out to shortstop, third base, whatever, or a really loud out, deep outfield, a hard line drive that was just unfortunately right at a center fielder or a left fielder or something. It seemed like every single time he'd get a hold of one, it'd be 107, 108 off the bat, but it'd be right at somebody. And the law of averages, if he keeps on making contact like that, some of those are going to find gaps or go out. And you're slowly starting to see that. His average has been climbing dramatically, especially from this weekend. We can cover a little bit more in a minute, but it's happening. You're seeing it kind of unfold. What everybody talked about, how good of a hitter he is and how much of an impact he's going to have for this team. It's starting to unfold right before us. If he keeps this up the rest of the year, sky's the limit on what he's going to be able to do for us and the home run totals that are potential. He's a little behind the 8 ball, as far as any type of records go. But, you get up to 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 home runs on a year. That's a heck of a year. And I think Vahiva's got a strong chance to get there. We'll kind of get a little bit more of a ground check, I guess, if you will, once we get into conference play. But I think it's going to translate, man. That's why you have these non-conference games at the beginning of the year, kind of get tuned up, get the rust off, kind of get those in-game at-bats that are so critical, and be in your rhythm by the time you get to conference.
Yeah, and it's like we've said, it was just a matter of time. Once he got that first one in, that it would really allow him to gain that confidence and really find himself at the plate, just like he did in his freshman year at Sacramento State. To be fair, that's a different, level of competition, but what he was still able to do there was pretty impressive. And to see that hopefully starting to translate here right at the, it seems like right time as conference plays right around the corner here. And, he's not the only one that seems to be doing better at the plate. You go down the rest of this game one, Ben McLaughlin 2 for 4, Hudson White 2 for 4, Stovall 1 for 4 in his first live at bats, not considering, batting practice and, bullpens against his own guys. And so when you see guys like this, these numbers, it's got to be encouraging with, where our pitching's already at. And it's like we said, our bats might be slow to wake up, but when they do, it's going to be a great thing. And as we transition into game 2, you see that here, game 2 of the doubleheader on Saturday, Arkansas wins 11-1 in 8 innings as they run Rule McNeese. And I think that just shows you what, the time and patience and really giving this team time to tune up, if you will, like you said, against these non-conference opponents. This is what you end up seeing.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think it's another one of those things where those Friday games, it's a good thing that you've got a guy like Hagen Smith on the bump there if it is a low scoring affair, because we're very likely going to be facing another team's ace as well, or things of that nature. Some of their best pitchers, we can really match up well there. Those are very likely going to be low scoring games, kind of more often than not. So having Hagen, having Gabe Geckel really, kind of stepping up early in the season, it looks like we're going to be able to really ride those guys in those low scoring affairs. And then you get kind of back into some teams' bullpens, and that's where things can really have a chance to open up. And we definitely saw that against McNeese in the 2 games after the first one. It's almost like we were really hitting our stride in that game 3. We were getting kind of deep in their bullpen. They were having some pitchers struggle with significant walks, and we were taking advantage of our guys on base, which is a good thing to see because we struggled with that kind of earlier in the year. So, that 11-1 run rule win, that was awesome. Some big things happened in that game. But I thought Brady Tygart came out and did exactly what he should have. He went a little bit deeper on pitches, but overall he had a great game as well.
Yeah, you break it down. Brady Tygart 4 innings as well. So Dave kind of capping. It seems like most of these guys about 4 innings is all he really wanted them to pitch. 88 pitches, like you said, a little bit deeper into his pitch count than you probably would have hoped. But he only allowed 3 hits, 0 runs out of that, and 8 strikeouts. So like you said with Hagen Smith, same thing I think applies here with Brady. You let him go a little bit more, he probably hits double-digit strikeouts. And then you have Parker Coyle come in. He's one of those guys that they've been continuously giving, chance after chance to see if he can really show what Dave said has been one of the biggest leaps from year 1 to 2 that he's seen in a while. And, not the worst outing, but you hate to see that 4 hits number in just 1 1/3 inning with 35 pitches along, 4 hits, 1 run, and 3 strikeouts. It's not 1 run's not terrible, but you hate to see that contact that is getting made against him. And then, you're a very experienced senior grad closer, Cody Frank, coming in with 2 2/3 to close things out here with 28 pitches, getting things done with 1 strikeout. So, I think the leash is a little longer for Parker Coyle than what maybe some expected after his first few outings. And maybe he's one of those guys that he needs to find his rhythm as well. And that's maybe what Dave is thinking, letting him go a little bit and giving him chance after chance.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's one of those things where, Dave Van Horn knows in the back of his head, the more pitchers that he's got that he can rely on, the better we're going to be in, the better shape we're going to be in deep into the year when, you got somebody that may be struggling one game, go ahead and pull him out and put Parker Cole in there. If he's kind of proven that he can come in those high leverage situations. I agree. I want to see a little bit more out of him, especially considering some of the tout that he was getting at the beginning of the year. I haven't quite seen it yet. Maybe it's coming. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of a confidence issue, or he's just missing his spots just enough that these guys are able to get a hold of some of those hanging breaking balls and things. I think there was like 3 straight singles that were hit or off of him back to back to back that allowed that 1 run to come across the plate. But I do agree with the decision to leave him out there, kind of similar to the way we left Gabe Geckel out there against UCA. Sometimes it's a good thing to let those guys get out of their own messes to an extent. He did have those 3 strikeouts along with the hits. So it's not like he just had a horrible outing at all. You want those guys to have some confidence and know that the coaches believe in them. So I agree with leaving him in there a little bit, even though he did give up the 1 run. But I would like to see him make some improvements, get that confidence up a little bit, have a few better outings, some shutdown outings, if you will. But then I was impressed with Cody Frank. He's done nothing but good things this year. I think he's had 1 bad outing. But other than that, he's been fairly consistent in that relief role / closing role, whatever you need from him. It seems like he's going to be kind of another one of those Swiss Army knives, very, Will McIntyre-esque, if you will, kind of put him in any situation, whether it's to close a couple innings, get you through some relief innings, things of that nature. It seems like he's had some pretty good success.
I was about to say, you read my mind there. I was going to say, there's numerous guys on this roster as far as your pitching staff that are going to be those Swiss Army knives that can come in and start or relieve or come in and close. I mean, you're seeing that, in the future, Gabe Geckel is going to be one of those guys that's going to be a starter in the future. But for now, he's going to be a closer because you've got 3 studs on the mound starting on your Friday through Sunday guys. So let him get the experience in a closing role. And then when his time comes here, and probably honestly next season, then he'll have a lot of pitches under his belt, and he won't be a guy that you're having to rely on. That he came in some last year, but didn't necessarily get a lot done. He's getting a lot of innings under him, and I think Dave knows that, and I think that's what you're seeing here.
100%. That's how you build, man, and that's kind of where you throw those dynasty type terms around, is where you've got the guys that are on the bench. I mean, because there's even guys not pitching right now that are talented, and that'll kind of get their own whenever the time comes. And so you got a lot of mouths to feed from the pitching staff side of things. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Dave Van Horn knows what he's got, and he knows that these guys, obviously we're playing for this season and trying to win it all this season, but you can always kind of feel that future mentality. He's always looking at, where's my team going to be at next year? Who are the guys that need development this year in preparation for next year, and things of that nature. So it's been exciting to watch this year for sure. Just seeing some of these freshman guys get out there and really perform well.
Yeah, and another guy that we haven't even talked about because he hasn't pitched yet is you've got to think about Hunter Dietz is going to be healthy around April after having a small procedure in the offseason, and that he's already been throwing and having bullpens and such. But he's another guy that performed really well in fall ball after getting on campus. That you just throw another one into the mix that can come in and probably have some big key contributions throughout the season once he is able and healthy to come out and put some innings in for Arkansas.
Very true.
And so this is where things got exciting for Arkansas in this second game. You had Arkansas have 4 different guys with 4 home runs in this game. You have Kendall Diggs, Jason Jones, Vahiva Aloy, and Peyton Stovall didn't take long getting back into true form with getting a home run of his own in this game. And you look at guys in this game, Stovall went 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs. You had Vahiva Aloy 2 for 3 with 4 RBIs. So it's like we said, these guys are really finding themselves. And, it's like I said before, it's perfect timing as we're going into conference play this week.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think we had talked about it kind of a couple weeks ago as well. And it's really come to fruition quicker than I thought. But we talked about, once we get Stovall back, it's one more consistent bat. And everybody could tossed around that it looked like he was primed for a breakout year and whatnot, and he's had the setbacks from the injuries and things. And so I was a little bit nervous that it might take him a little bit to kind of get his sea legs under him. Didn't look like it, honestly. I know he was he was just DHing. So, we have yet to see if he's going to play second base and they'll move Souza around or Souza will be on the bench. I'm not sure how that's all going to kind of play out yet. You got a lot of mouths to feed on the infield positions as well. But he came in and really made the most of his at-bats being that DH role, especially in this game too. Had some really clutch hits, especially the home run, man. It is like you could almost see the weight off his shoulders just to kind of get that first one out there. It's just the confidence boost that you get even in, game 2 of the year for you to be able to hit a home run like that off of fairly decent pitching. McNeese is not a bad team at all. And I think that's going to do wonders for his confidence and really just add another piece as far as the bats go, which we need. We really kind of need some consistency in our offense. And you're starting to see it from Aloy. You're starting to see it, obviously, from Stovall coming in. I can't say enough good things about Benny Barrows. Old Ben McLaughlin just absolutely raking it this weekend. So there's some guys that are really stepping up right now at the plate. And it seems like, as soon as one person gets hot, another person kind of feel off that energy and get hot at the same time. So I think we're like you said, getting hot at the right time right here before SEC play. I think some of these guys are really going to start putting in some good at bats. You're seeing the patience grow from all these guys. They're drawing more walks, getting hit at the plate, and then taking advantage of those timely opportunities with guys on base and getting good doubles, good contact, whether it's, sack flies, whatever the case may be. I've been impressed the last weekend and a half with kind of the way the bats have started to turn on.
Yeah, and that's one thing you got to look at that on the defensive side of the ball with, like you said, Stovall be coming back and just DHing. I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of his role for maybe this first series or two as he kind of still gets back into playing mode. But once he gets back where Dave feels comfortable inserting him out on the defensive side of things, that's when it's going to get very fun and interesting because you've got a handful of guys that you can mix up and shuffle around there with Stovall, Holt, Souza, Spraglot. You've got a handful of guys that can all go out there and have been decently impressive so far this season. Souza's made a case to get playing time this year with how his bat's been performing. You've got Holt that came in and was going to be your starter over at third base before Stovall had his injury, but then you have to shift him over, and then you turn around and you have Sprague having one of the best batting averages on the team so far this season, which may have been a little bit of unexpected with him coming from a smaller school. But like I've said before, you can't always say just because he's from a smaller school doesn't mean he's going to not be able to rise up to SEC level competition. And we haven't played any SEC teams yet, but to come into those shoes, if you will, with a big time program and just turn it on. So you've got a handful of guys that I'm going to be interested to see how Dave Van Horn handles that. Do you have a rotation on the weekend of all these guys get playing time in some sort of fashion, or does he kind of, once Stovall's back, kind of lock him in at second base, and then it's third base that's the rotation that you see?
Yeah, I could see it going a couple different ways actually as well. I think Benny Barrels has kind of locked up his position at first, but I mean, there's always the case to be made. If he needs a day off, you can roll Stovall over there and then play Souza at second if Souza's needing some playing time. So there'll be a couple of ways I think they can shake it up. And right now, the only reason I would play Stovall, maybe sooner rather than later in a sense, is there was two different double play balls that were misplayed by Nolan Souza at second base, that were hit to Sprague a lot. Easy transitions, should have been easy double plays, and Souza just kind of had errant throws to Ben McLaughlin that we were unable to capitalize on those double play type scenarios, just due to Souza having some throwing errors there. But I don't want to pull a guy just because he makes a couple of throwing errors at all. But I can't help but think if Stovall's out there, those are easy double play balls, man. That you're able to capitalize on. But to your point, I do think Souza has earned every bit of playing time he's got, and then some. I mean, he's really done a great job as a freshman. His approach at the plate is just it's light years above where he should be. You can tell that he's kind of got big league talent, if you will, and he's been impressive to watch. He's made some great plays at second, not knocking his fielding at all. So it's going to be kind of a fun. You can say it for the outfield too. It's going to be kind of a fun carousel, trying to see who gets playing time each game. I think it's going to really differ because at each position, in my opinion, we've got a lot of guys that are very neck and neck with each other, as far as talent, experience, skill level, where their bats are at that time, how well they're hitting, things of that nature. Because you've got Jason Jones, Lovich that are kind of splitting time in left field. You've got Edmondson and Wilmsmeyer that are kind of splitting time in center field that have all played well enough compared to each other to all start all the time, so they're just kind of having to share right now. And same way with a lot of positions in the infield and then at catcher as well. So I think we're not hurting for depth by any means at pretty much any spot. I think that's kind of the long and short of it. So I am excited to see if there's anybody that kind of really kicks it into a next gear and forces the hand of, hey, I'm going to play every single game because I'm hitting the ball so well. You're somewhat seeing that with Sprague a lot at third right now. He's about the only one, and maybe with McLaughlin at first. But I think there's potential for some other positions, for that healthy competition, if you will, to have those guys really try to kick things into the next gear and try to lock down that position.
Yeah, that's true. And it's one of those things too where I think you're seeing a very healthy version of healthy competition, that iron sharpens iron, where these guys are vying for playing time, and one guy turns it up. Well, the next guy comes along and turns it up as well, and said, "I'm not letting this guy get a leg up on me and take away from my playing time." And so I think it'll be, like you said, interesting to see as the season progresses how that develops. It'll be interesting to see as the chemistry goes, that Hawaiian to Hawaiian connection between Aloy and Souza goes through the rest of the season. That's a cool fact for Arkansas, that they do have two Hawaiians on the team. I don't know how many teams around the country can say that, but that's really cool. And you see Dave Van Horn going, all over, bringing talent in from all of these different places. And so as we roll over to game 3 of the series, this is where Arkansas lit things up the most, winning 18-5 in 7 innings. So they cut this game another inning short, or 2 innings short for you guys out there. And Mason Molina, your Sunday starter, 4 innings, been consistent, like we said. Dave is kind of, holding back these guys a little bit as we do have conference play coming up. A little bit deeper than, Hagen Smith was probably the lowest pitch count of your 3 starters. Molina went 77 pitches, 3 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Not his best outing at all, but I don't think you're going to see this very often. Gage Wood comes in for 2 1/3 innings, 33 pitches, 3 hits, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. And the guy that it's fantastic to see him back. Friend of the show, we had him on our preview show. Dylan Carter made his debut earlier than expected, coming in, pitching the final 2/3 of an inning in the 7th and going 7 pitches and getting Arkansas out of this game. And I think you could tell he was glad to be back, getting out on the mound, checking off some jitters. But, it was great. Saw a video on social media after the game of, just him embracing his family. So excited to have him back on the mound. And I think, like we said, that's another Swiss Army knife type of guy that's coming back into the fold that can, give you some long relief or come in and close. And, his arm is fresh, even though, some of the – it's not fair to say these other guys' arms aren't fresh because it's only been about a month into the season. But to have him come out and be able to come out, get through that final 2/3 inning, build some confidence as we're getting ready to start conference play, that's great having him back.
Yeah, and I think you'll see him get a decent amount of work in like the midweek games. I expect to see him pitch maybe an inning to maybe even 3 innings against Oral Roberts this midweek game. Just to kind of get him as much time on the mound as possible before you do get to conference play. Because like you said, he's got potential to really help this bullpen have even more depth. He brings a lot of experience. He's been around for a little while, kind of brings that level head mentality, especially can help, kind of lead some of the freshmen, if you will, especially in those tense situations. Somebody like Dylan Carter, that's really kind of a level head guy, can help keep everybody in check, if you will. And then I do expect him to have significant innings later on in the year once he really gets the rust knocked off. Super glad to see him back, though, man. It's so awesome. He's such a nice guy. If you haven't watched our baseball preview episode in front of Baum, he come out and hung out with us in about 9-degree weather. He's such a trooper for dealing with that, but super fun to talk to. Had tons of good insight about this team, so go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But it's definitely an exciting game. Sorry.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, shout out Josh. What's up? He got fellow Variety Sports Network there guy. Loves some baseball. But as we dive into the offensive side of things here, this is where I think really Arkansas showed that it can respond. Stovall in this game. Well, to preface this, Arkansas was up 4-1 early in this game. McNeese comes back, scores 4 runs, takes the lead. And this is, I think, where you see Arkansas tested here with, a team coming in that, it's a non-conference matchup. You should win these games. You should sweep. And, they're all of a sudden behind. Then you come out and, you put up 14 unanswered points, being like, this is our house. You're not going to come in and, give us an upset, if you will. And so I think it's one of those things I enjoyed seeing Arkansas come out and respond in a big fashion. You look at these numbers, Peyton Stovall, 2 for 5, 2 RBIs. Ben McLaughlin, 4 for 5 with 2 RBIs. Ty Wilmsmeyer, former Mizzou Tiger, going to face his old team. Our friends at the Woods Water Mizzou podcast come, former, mentioning Ty as the former Tiger in town with his buddy Ross Lovich, who also got his first home run of the season with a 3-run blast. So, these guys are coming out, and even guys that aren't necessarily playing a ton. We've seen that rotation with Lovich and Wilmsmeyer not, being in the rotation for some of these positions. Well, they came out here, and both of them have been performing well all season. And Lovich come out here and just sent a 3-run bomb. So, you got to love where these bats are at headed into the season.
Yeah, it couldn't come at a better time. I know we've kind of beat the horse to death, if you will, but man, it's exciting. That was one thing we really talked about early in the year, that obviously the pitching's there. You saw it in all the games. The pitching was really there. It was keeping us in some games, getting us some wins where the bats just weren't really going. And we kind of sit there and what if we can get these bats going, if you get Stovall back and he can come out and kind of start things hot. And obviously everybody knew Aloy had the talent. It just needed to start happening. It's all happening. And you're getting, it's it's contagious. And everybody always says that every year. Teams get hot. You'll have one player that's really struggling. They'll have one of their buddies that gets hot, and then boom, they get hot too. It's kind of weird how that works. It's kind of a contagious type thing, but you're really seeing that across the board. McLaughlin is just on fire. Stovall coming out being great. Aloy is really catching fire as well. And then it just kind of rolls over into guys like Ross Lovich hit the ball well the whole weekend. Wilmsmeyer did. Edmondson. I mean, everybody's getting out there and really taking advantage of their at-bats and making a case for themselves to play more. And that's a good problem to have if you're Coach Van Horn, is that everybody, kind of like we said, is really stepping up with each other, getting better and better all at the same time together. And it really, like you said, couldn't come at a better time in preparation for conference play.
Yeah, that's very true. So, like as we mentioned, Arkansas has Oral Roberts coming up tomorrow. Quick last little tune-up game here before we enter conference play with Missouri coming to Baum Walker on this weekend. I think you're planning on being here on Friday. We're all going to try to be there, catch this first opening weekend of SEC baseball as things are getting started there. So, you got to love the direction this team's trending here. It's a big, target, if you will, on the back of us now that we're up to that dreaded number one spot, if you will, that, people seem to rotate into that. And, hopefully it's one of those things where we can
Stay there a while.
stay there a while, and I know there'll probably be at some point in the season where you'll have a shuffle between, you look at the top 5 of the D1 baseball poll right now. 4 of the top 5 teams are SEC teams. You've got us, LSU, Tennessee, and a surprise in Texas A&M. And then you've got also Oregon State up there that's only lost 1 game. To who?
To us.
Your Arkansas Razorbacks. Yes. And so, I had a buddy at work that's a Texas A&M fan. I said, well, welcome to the top 5 with the big dogs here. Let's see how that goes for you guys. Is they're the only undefeated SEC team left. But let's see what happens when conference play rolls around. They open up the season with Florida this weekend. So not an easy, opening round for conference play. But when you get to the SEC, for the most part, you're not going to have really any easy series to begin with.
No, not really. It's tough competition week in and week out.
Yeah. And so as we roll over to the Arkansas softball side of things, they had the Razorback Rumble this weekend, which was their 3rd straight tournament that they hosted here at Bogle Park, where, you had some games get canceled, some things shuffled around because of the weather, but, unfortunately in this one, their first game against South Alabama, they fell 2-1 in this game. It's one of those things you're not going to see very often, but Robin Herron came out in this game, got the start in the circle here, 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. She threw 83 pitches, and you had Morgan Leanstock come in relief for her. 3 innings, 3 hits, got 5 strikeouts on 46 pitches. So she kind of came out and closed things out here. But, those 2 runs allowed by Herron, that ultimately was really, our bats just didn't come alive in this game. And, you had some bad weather. Arkansas got up early due to Bree Ellis in the first inning, where, she put a RBI double to right, where she scored Rakin Johnson from second, and that was Arkansas's only run of the game. This is one of those things, I don't think you're going to see teams come in and get the jump on us like this very often. And I think our pitching staff and our bats are just too good. And I think as we are continuing to get things kind of warmed up here, just like the baseball team, with conference play right around the corner, you're going to see this team hopefully start taking their stride. Maybe see a little bit more develop on the pitching side of things, where you've got Robin Herron, who's really going to step up big behind her. You've got a few names. You've got Morgan Leanstock. You've got Hannah Kaminzin, and several other girls that we brought in or are returnees that you're hoping can show some more development and kind of more consistency in the circle this season.
Yeah, I think that's a good take for sure. Realistically, they pitched well enough to win this game. I mean, only allowing 2 runs and it being early in the game and then kind of shutting things down the last several innings. You had every opportunity to win this one. It just didn't happen. It seemed like, realistically, even South Alabama didn't hit the ball that well either. It was just kind of one of those pitchers' duels, if you will, that we unfortunately came out on the bottom end of. And that happens from time to time. These low-scoring 1-run, 2-run games like that, it's tough to lose them, but it does happen from time to time. And I'll cheat a little bit here, but we did get some revenge on them later in the weekend. We'll cover that in a minute.
Yeah. And before we continue here, Seth, we got a good question. I'll get your take on this. Our friends over at the Woods, Water, and Mizzou podcast asked what's more likely to happen this weekend. Do Missouri and Arkansas meet up in the SEC basketball tournament, or do the Tigers win the series in Fayetteville this weekend?
Is neither a good answer? I
I was
don't
about
think
to,
either
that's
of
what I
those
was
is
going
going
to
to
say.
happen. Man, I don't know.
I would have to lean more towards basketball just because
Me
I
too.
don't see anybody coming in to Baum Walker and taking a series the way our pitching staff is pitching right now. I think that's going to be a tough call. So even though I'm not as confident in our basketball team, and just being honest, the Missouri Tiger basketball team either, but I'd be willing to bet that would be more likely to happen than them come in and win the series in Baum.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That would kind of be my guess too if I had to. I don't see where we're at right now with the way the bats are hitting kind of at the right time and the way our pitching has just been so shut down so far. I don't really see us losing, a 2 out of 3 series. We might drop a game. Definitely think that's possible, but I think it's going to be tough for us to lose an entire series. And I agree with the way the basketball season's gone for, a lot of the SEC teams where, you've had guys win on any given night, lose on any given night. I mean, heck, we put up 107 points on Kentucky and just still lost. But I could see that happening just out of kind of the way the ball bounces and the way you can kind of get lucky or unlucky, if you will, in basketball. But I do think having that best of 3 type series scenario, it bodes well for the Razorbacks baseball team.
That's very true. I mean, like you said, with basketball, you can't count anything out. Just the other day, you had Vanderbilt beat Florida. So you never know what's going to happen, especially right around tournament time. Even though it's not the NCAA tournament, with tournament time still being here, you never know what's going to happen there. But as we bounce back over to softball, there's doubleheader of that day. They're supposed to play St. Francis following that South Alabama game. Unfortunately, that game was canceled due to the bad weather that was here in Fayetteville this weekend. And then they got things kicked off the following day with game 1 of their doubleheader against Northern Iowa, where they got the win 7-4 here. So kind of bouncing back here in this game, you had Morgan Leanstock actually start in this game, where she went 6 innings, allowed 6 hits, only 1 run in this game, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. She threw 116 pitches, but as we know, that's nothing to these softball pitchers. It's a drop in the bucket. We've seen pitchers go, 150, 160 pitches before. And then you had Nikki McGaffin come in, allowed 2 hits, 3 runs. So she didn't, 11 pitches total is all she got to, throw in this game, as, it just wasn't her day. So Courtney Deiffel made the decision to go ahead and pull her. And then you had Hannah Camden come in for the final inning, shut things down, only allowing 1 walk, getting 2 strikeouts on 24 pitches to close things out and get Arkansas the win there as far as the pitching staff goes. But then you roll over to the batting side of things. Rylan Hedgecock was fantastic at the plate in this game. Finished 1 for 2 with a team high 3 RBIs in this game. You had Bree Ellis score a pair of runs on a solo home run and a sac fly. Kennedy Miller, you cannot rave enough about her as a freshman coming in, playing that catcher role, which was towards the end of last season the job for Hannah's twin sister Lauren Cammons in, but this has allowed her to shift more to her natural position around short and some of the outfield. But Kennedy Miller, she's already made her name at Arkansas. When she's up to bat, everybody's now it's Miller time, and I think that's a fantastic play on words there. But you got to love what she's been able to come and do as a freshman behind the plate, having solid, defensive ability, but also she found her bat in the tournament last weekend, having her first home run of her Razorback career. And then she's just followed it up with going 2 for 3 with 2 runs scored and an RBI in this game. And then Reagan Kramer laced her first home run of the season on a solo shot in the 4th. So, these bats are getting hot, like we said, just with baseball. You have different players stepping up, and I think that just bodes well as we get ready to start conference play.
Yeah, couldn't ask for a better game to kind of bounce back after the, I say poor performance at the plate. Sort of poor performance at the plate in game 1. Come out and actually hit the ball a little bit better, score some runs. Nothing crazy, obviously, but definitely well enough to win a game. Behind some decent pitching as well. So pretty good bounce back game.
Yeah. And in that second game of the day, Arkansas, like you hinted at it earlier, got that rematch game against South Alabama, and Arkansas took advantage of this one and got the win easily here, 10-4. Hogs scored 10 runs on 10 hits in this game, including 3 extra base hits. So, the bats continue to roll over from that first game. And, what helped Hannah Camden, she's 5-0 on the season, picked off where she, you know, left off. And she went the distance against the Jaguars in this game where she went the entire game. She was able to allow them only 4 runs on 6 hits while walking around a walk situation. So fantastic things for her. And then again, Bree Ellis, that's a name that we're going to probably be saying honestly every weekend if I had to bet. Tied her career high in hits after 3 base hits, recording 2 RBIs in this game. Rylan Hedgecock, 3 RBI triple in the first. Nia Carter, a name that we haven't heard as much, but know what she can do is what she did in her previous program. Reagan Kramer, they both had multi-hit outings. You had Carter that went for 2 for 3 in this game with 2 runs and an RBI. Kramer 2 for 3, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. You got to love where this softball team is at right now. As we get things started off in conference play with Auburn this weekend as we have to go on the road. They are ranked 25th. We're hovering around that like 23 ranges. We dropped that game against South Alabama, so that kind of pulled us down a little bit more from where we were at last week. But you got to love where they're slowly finding themselves, and I think when you have more consistency behind Robin Heron, I think that's where this team is really going to find their stride.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially, in kind of those series formats. You really can ride one good pitcher pretty well in that scenario. In softball, it's way different than baseball. But having 2 like kind of legit aces, if you will, between Camden and Heron, and then you've got some other good arms kind of sprinkled in there, really gives you some versatility if one of them isn't having the best day, or if you're on kind of one of those weird series where you had like 4 games in a weekend versus just 3. Like we've seen in the past. So having some extra depth there and some really solid pitching is going to help us this year, especially when you get into more of that normal weekend series, format of cadence. It's going to be a good thing. And I think, like you said earlier, the bats they're starting to get going. You're seeing more names kind of get sprinkled in here. Obviously, Kennedy Miller, I think she went 1 for 3 in that game we just talked about as well, had an RBI again. So she's been doing nothing but raking at the plate, which is awesome as a freshman. So a lot of good names kind of getting involved with the ones that we expected, and then a few that were unexpected. So that's good things to see, and I think it really only bodes well for how much depth this team has to really produce week in and week out once conference play starts.
Yeah, that's true. And then Arkansas ending things on a top note here as their last game of the Razorback Rumble. Northern Iowa, again, they won this game 9-0 in 6 innings, so shortened this game up a little bit. None other than Robin Heron getting the start in the circle here, going the full 6 innings, allowing like 2 hits, no runs, only 1 walk, 10 strikeouts on 109 pitches on the day.
That's an ace.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, she's so good, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. She's come in and really stepped up into, I feel like, that place that was left wide open after Janice Dels, had a fantastic year last year, but then, went pro. I don't know if she necessarily had another year of eligibility to come back, but, once she left, it kind of left a big hole in that pitching staff for somebody to step up. And, lo and behold, Robin Heron, we saw flashes from her last year, but then she rose up to the potential here and is really taking on that ace kind of workhorse role that we saw out of Janice Dels last season. And then when you look at the bats in this game, putting up 9 runs, fantastic outing. You had Bree Ellis, 2 hits at 3 bats, 1 RBI. Kennedy Miller, another great inning, game for her, 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs in this game. Hannah Gamble, 1 for 2, 3 RBIs. So you got to love, these players stepping up and kind of rising up to the challenge here. And like we said, we've got a ranked Auburn coming to town this weekend as softball is we are going on the road as softball is getting ready to get their own SEC play started. And I'm excited to see what this team does. I know there's high expectations with the loaded transfers that we got coming in. And I think you're seeing those start to take shape. Like we said, I think this team is 360 from the baseball team, where you saw them have better luck with the bats early on, and have some decent pitching, but they're still trying to navigate through piecing together other than Robin Heron, who's going to come out and kind of put together the games for them. And I think Coach Deifel is slowly figuring that out. And, it'll be interesting to see this first test against Auburn this weekend to see what we look like against SEC level competition.
Yeah, I completely agree. The one thing I want to see is just maybe just a hint more consistency on the offensive side of things. We'll have, a couple of games where we just hit the ball out of the park, do well, getting base hits, playing small ball from time to time, even having those timely hits to move runners around the bases. And then there'll be, one game out of the weekend where it just seems like we can't get a hit to save our lives. So maybe getting a little bit of an improvement on the consistency side of things across all of the games of a weekend, or things for that example. That's what I want to see. Maybe have a little bit of an uptick there once it comes to conference play. And, you can't take too much heat, if you will, on those games where you don't hit well. It happens. It is going to happen from time to time. It's just, can you limit, having one of those every single weekend, for example? Can you kind of cut that back to, every other couple of series you might have one poor hitting performance, from your entire roster? So just getting a little bit more consistency at the bats in those types of games will be nice to see if we can improve there. But overall, outside of that, man, I've been very, very encouraged by the way this softball team is kind of coming together with so many fresh faces. And then a couple of the returning faces, it seems like things are really kind of clicking from a team chemistry standpoint. Fans are really getting involved and buying into some of these players. That's exciting to see too. So I think we've got good things in store for the entire conference play, as it's coming into fruition this coming weekend.
Yeah, that's so true. And get ready to catch us on our regular episode earlier this week. We got some big things coming up that we're going to announce for this kind of show that we've been doing on Sundays, and our first Monday show of recapping the baseball weekend. But we've got a little bit more logistics to figure out. But stay tuned over the next couple weeks. We got some big announcements coming for you. Make sure to hit like and subscribe on YouTube to make sure you don't miss those, or wherever you find your podcasts, and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where all those places. But we got some things in the work, and I think it's exciting things for not only us, but for you guys watching. And, we'll keep you updated there. And, Arkansas basketball plays its first game in the SEC tournament tomorrow, so be prepared for that. Oral Roberts, baseball playing Oral Roberts tomorrow. Arkansas taking on Vanderbilt in the first round of the SEC tournament. So plenty of Arkansas things to watch tomorrow. But, thank everybody for tuning in. We'll be back here next week to recap the opening weekend of SEC play for both softball and baseball, and we'll let you know how things ended up with basketball. How did they fare in the SEC tournament? That's where we hope they can make the run, but like we said, it's a slim chance. So, stay tuned for that. We'll catch you later next week on the show. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you right back here next week.